Good. So I'm just going to go ahead and start. Otherwise, I know some people have to leave early or they may have other issues. So let's not waste any time. I wanted to welcome you all here. I wanted to welcome you all to this mini workshop on stage fright and how to manage it, how to prevent it. Um, I also wanted to let you know that in case I haven't told you already, this is going to be about 90 minutes long. So we should be finished by 2:30. If it goes shorter, it's fine. If people have to leave, it's fine. If we want to expand, I realized there's so much to talk about that we might have to do another session another time. So for now, we'll just keep it to 90 minutes as much as possible. And then if we see that we need more, then we can arrange another time to keep talking about it. Because obviously we're not going to solve any major problem in 90 minutes. So, but it's good. I think it's good to start talking about it to start getting the ball rolling, if it makes sense, and that we open up to the possibility of getting better at this at performance and not getting so anxious all the time. Which in some ways I think it affects all of us. It's not just. It's really interesting when I was asking people about it. Everybody had some sort of experience of anxiety in performance. So it's really, really interesting how common it is. If anything, I think it's more common to have it than not to have it. There is always some sort of stress or anxiety that goes with being on a stage and performing. And of course, it doesn't have to be just with music. It can be with anything else. For me, for example, when I started doing workshops and webinars, stuff like this, for me, I was super anxious. And I got better as I got along, but still, it is something that for me, talking is more difficult than playing because I'm not so used to it. We just need more practice. Also, this is meant to be one of the workshops for the people who are inside Suzuki, and also open to people who are not inside Suzuki. Like today, we have a bit of a mixture. And the main purpose of this is to help us to become better performers or teachers, and to be able to help others with it. So just sharing information and just trying to see how we can help each other. So at any point during the workshop, is a workshop. So I would like you to participate. I don't want you to just be listening as much as I was saying earlier. It's very important to listen, right? But I think it's also very important that you take part of it. And I will be asking questions. Please feel free to talk and to say what your experience might be, or if you found any solutions on specific topics that we're talking today. And also I wanted to say, just to finish with this introduction, that today's workshop, I'm trying to make it quite practical. I'm not a psychologist or psychotherapist. I don't have like all the knowledge for all this. I'm not going to be able to make a big explanation what stage fright is, but I'm going to give you some practical strategies and tools that have worked for me and for my students, and I'm sure that will be more beneficial than just talking about it. So let's start with this. I was also yesterday. I had very nice experience. I went to my daughter's performance. They had a performance for all the dance, ballet, and musical theater, and all those things. And it was so beautiful to see, in a different context, from a non-musical perspective, all these children taking part of a performance, and they were super cute. They were so nice, but there was no. I mean, they were feeling a bit nervous, but they were just, they were just it was joy. People, the children were, smiling, even if they were concentrating, but they were also, having fun. And this is, I think that's basically what we want for our students and also for ourselves. So I just thought this is such a great example of how a performance should be. And then on the other side, also positive. I don't know if anybody was watching the proms last night or was at the proms, but it was a beautiful concert, very fun concert as well, with Pekka Kuusisto playing the Vivaldi Four Seasons. And it felt so natural and it felt so nice, that they were on stage, not just him, but the whole of the Bremen orchestra they were all like really giving everything, and really it looked like they were really having fun. You never know what's going on behind in some of those performances, but it felt, like, this is a performance, this is joy, and everybody was taking part of it, taking the audience as well as part of the performance. It was amazing. If you haven't watched it or listened to it, it's really nice too. I really recommend it. Right. So let's go now to what Stage Fright is a little bit, just to have a context of, just to have a little bit of understanding of what it means. I'm not going to give you any dictionary sentence of what stage fright is, but I'm going to give you what I believe it is. So for me, stage fright is any level of stress or anxiety that is caused by one or more traumatic experiences that are in relationship with a performance situation. So let's say whatever you are feeling in a negative way from a stress or from anxiety in a performance, and it's related to something that might have happened in the past in another performance, or it could be unrelated, but it somehow has a connection to performance, and that makes us feel stressed, makes us feel anxious. I don't know if we agree on this so far. Obviously, it's also a very wide, how to say it, the symptoms are very wide, the causes are very wide in performance. So there's not like one specific thing that defines what it is, and everybody experiences it in a different way. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's so difficult to tackle it, because everybody has a completely different experience when they say they're feeling nervous or they're feeling anxious in a performance. That's one of the reasons as well why I'm going to give you different kind of strategies and tools, so, because people will respond to one or the other in a better way. And something might work better for you, might not work for your students, but another strategy might work for them. Or for a friend, you might be talking to somebody about it and they're like, oh my God, I have so much performance anxiety, give me any ideas you got from the workshop. And you might just, if you talk about it and suddenly let it go, I'll try that one. And they might work for them, not for you. So I think it's always good to try different things and find what's the best way for us and for all other people around us. Also, as a Suzuki teacher, I want to focus on the positive. So I'm always going to try to find the positive side of things. That's why I started with those performances from yesterday that were very positive. Let me just contextualize a little bit with me, and then we're going to move into also your stories, but I'm just going to tell you a little bit about my experience. I already spoke a little bit about how I feel sometimes when I'm talking, and I'm feeling a lot more calmer these days. At the beginning, I was very anxious. As you probably all know, I was a Suzuki child, so I was very, how to put it? I was very fortunate. Yes, that's the word. I was very fortunate that I was able to perform from a very early age, and constantly. So there was never a 3-year gap before the next performance. It was a constant thing, and this is something we're going to talk about it later. So for me, starting very young performing, was very natural, and I still believe it is very natural. That doesn't mean that since I was 3 until now, things have happened, and sometimes I felt that performance anxiety in more than one occasion. And the more I've been thinking about it, especially preparing for this, uh, the more subtle moments I found that actually that was definitely performance anxiety at that moment, and you didn't realize it. um, so I think it's very good for us to do that digging um, between, and we will do some of that later. Um, Obviously, when I left the Suzuki world, when I was, I don't know, in my early teens, I went to a different teacher, and the approach was very different, and there was a lot of stress in the lessons. So I did feel stressed and anxious to play for my teacher because he would shout at me, basically. So you had the threat right there. So you had to be very careful on how you did in the lesson, right? And you most of the time it was very rational. So it's not that you could control it; it would happen. So that created tension in my playing, also physical but also mental in both ways. Um, and then of course I still love performing, so I still kept doing it as much as I could, but not as much as I used to as a kid. Um, and the other moment that I remember having definitely having a performance anxiety was while I was at college in my last year. I had the opportunity to play a few times with a LSO, and it was amazing opportunity. It was an amazing experience, but it was very scary. And it was very scary. I remember in particular playing Mahler 6 with them, which is about, I don't know, 80 minutes long. I mean, it's non-stop playing. And I didn't realize while I was performing, but when we finished the piece, and I looked up, I was like, wait, I'm in the Vatican, I'm playing with the LSO. I was so into that tunnel vision that I was just focusing on what I was doing, making sure that everything was really good. And, you know, in that kind of not an open way that you can just interact with people, I was very closed into myself. And obviously that creates a lot of tension in us. So I think it's very important that we realize in hindsight as well that, oh, this is what happened. So let's try not to repeat it in the future if that happens again. And I remember this in particular, but there were other experiences with professional orchestras that were actually quite scary, especially with smaller orchestras where you feel that, you know, you have to be perfect all the time, otherwise everybody else will know what's happening, and or you have that imposter syndrome. I don't know if you understand what I mean with that. That, you know, oh, they will realize that I'm not as good as they think, you know. Things like that really play with our mind. So those things I think most people can relate because we all had experiences like this. um, and also at the same time I was doing all of this, I was very, very fortunate as well that I went through the world of yoga and meditation. And I remember, as probably after college, I had quite a few performances. I was with a string quartet and I also had recitals. And some of the things that really worked for me were just breathing exercises that I never thought of it as part of performance, but because I've been doing loads elsewhere, just centering myself before a performance with some simple breathing techniques would just anchor me down and being able to perform in a much natural way and in a much more aware way without all these demons coming to me. So that is a little bit what my story is about. And in a minute, I would like you to, and you probably have already been thinking about your own stories, but I would like you to think about any experiences you might have had in the past of performing in front of an audience, or it could be an exam, or like I was saying, it could be a teacher. Any moments that you have felt that anxiety while performing, and just choose one or two that might have been quite important or significant for you. And if you have that in your mind, if you don't mind just doing this exercise with me, maybe you can just close your eyes, and you can just go into that moment. And remember, this is not hypnosis, so you can come out at any moment if you feel like it's too much for you. But I would like you to go to that moment, how you were feeling, and what was it, if you could try to live it as much as possible from a detached point of view, but seeing what it was that you were feeling in your body. Was there any tensions? What were your thought patterns? What were you thinking at that moment? And also, what was, from your point of view, what happened during the performance? And why were you feeling the way you were feeling? Just take your time. Okay, when you're ready, you can open your eyes and you can come back to this meeting. Hello. You're fine, you're here now. Is there anyone who would like to share any of that, or anything from the story about themselves and performance anxiety? Or feel free to share as much or as little as you like, and you also can opt out if you want to. But if there's anything that you would like to share, like I shared before, I think it could be a really good way for you to, if you say it, it kind of, you can hear yourself saying it, it can help a lot. And also there might be someone else who might have a similar experience. Is that Lillian? Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. About a month ago, we had a concert, my lot, or plus a couple of others from Cambridge, the piano Suzuki teacher as well, had a couple of people who participated, and we went all the way over to Colchester to join up with the Ipswich area Suzuki teachers. So that was a pianist, a cellist and a violinist, all with their students. And we put on a program just for ourselves. No audience, outside audience was invited. It was just the parents who'd brought their children along. So it wasn't scary from that point of view, but it was a very big hall, very big stage, which is probably just as well, because I think we had about 10 keyboards for the pianists. There was a group of getting on for 30 violinists and violists, and getting on for a dozen cellists. So we needed all that space to be able to spread out on the stage, as we were all on it for the whole time. And we did quite a big program of Suzuki pieces, and some non-Suzuki pieces as well. Some just, well, they were all group pieces, but some were just the particular instrument. Some were a couple of different instruments involved playing together. Some were everybody playing all together, obviously Twinkle all together. And I had to lead the most advanced group of violinists for the Vivaldi A minor second movement from Book 5. And I was really nervous because I wasn't quite sure about how the other violinists, pupils would be playing. And hadn't been playing with one of my lot for a while, because she'd dropped out while playing book while doing grade 8. So I didn't want to take her through that. So she was with another teacher. I hadn't seen her for a while. And it just kind of felt strange. And I'd never led that particular piece before. I was worried about it. And I just kept messing up and having to get back in and messing up again. And I felt such an idiot. But because I know the piece perfectly well, and I can play it, but I don't know what the players thought, but I really felt that I could have done a better job on that one. So yeah, it was definitely performance anxiety for that.
Yeah, no, that sounds that sounds familiar. I think it is also, from what you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like it was the unknown as well. Like,
Yeah,
and you were in a situation which was not very comfortable,
yeah.
and that kind of threw you, and then all this spiral of thoughts started happening, right?
Yeah, so shifts went completely wrong, and yeah. Yeah.
Did you feel any from your body point of view? Do you remember if you were freezing up, or
I think I was pretty tense. I think that's why my left hand just wasn't behaving. So
right? Yeah, it's interesting how something in here can affect so much in our
yes.
body. Yes. Thank you, Lillian. That's a very good example of a performance anxiety moment. Yes. Is there anyone else who would like to share? Yeah, Lucy.
Just the most recent one, and I've got better in orchestral playing and chamber orchestras. I can kind of control it, the kind of fear that I used to have, but it's in smaller ensembles and chamber music. So I was playing a quartet in a small concert. I was playing to other musicians, so I think that might have not helped, but I thought I was fine. And it's just at that very last minute when there's an awareness that the focus is on me. It's like it's suddenly rabbit in the headlights kind of. And then the minute I become aware of that, then I'm aware of myself. And that's when the other symptoms sort of kick in. Like I stop breathing, bow starts to shake, and then that spirals because my bow's shaking, and obviously I can't control the way I want to, and I can't communicate how I want to. And it can happen in a split second. I can remember taking my violin out of my case, and I was fine, but then suddenly I let myself, I don't know whether it was aware of a silence or yeah, but it can just happen. And then it's very hard to get back into the music, I find. And yeah, so that's a sort of typical. I'm very aware that I do stop breathing, and and then the whole thing, it's just not a enjoyable experience. I can get through it, but that's not what it should be. And it's never you're never giving what you want or communicating what you want when you're thinking about yourself and bow shakes and heart racing and all those things.
Yes.
But yeah.
Is that something that I wasn't quite sure if you said that it started before you started playing, because it was
it was sort of just as I sort of taking my it was just like getting my instrument, sitting down, and then I don't know if it's the silence or a sudden I just let my brain focus on the wrong things, and on me, and then it goes wrong. Yeah.
I mean, yes, it's so irrational as well, because like it's like a bit like what Lillian was saying. It's not like you don't know the piece. It's just like suddenly just something else takes over, and you're not in control of the situation anymore, and that throws you because it's like, oh my god, what's going on? And the stop breathing is really interesting, because I think that's where you can start working on it. But anyway, thank you, Lucy. That's very useful. It just reminded me before we go into announce. There's so many concerts during this summer, any summer, students' concerts stuff happening, And I was in a concert recently of students, and one of the students was doing really well. And in the middle of the piece, they did a mistake, which is one of the runs went the wrong way, and they just forgot what to do next. And from that moment till the end, it was like a different person playing. It wasn't that, it wasn't that confident. It wasn't that, it wasn't doing any music, like you were saying. The music just went off. And that was split second, something happened, and then just like, whoa, everything just went the other way. So, like you were saying, it can happen before you start, but I was also going to say, it can also happen in the middle of this if something happens. Whether sometimes it doesn't have to be even yourself. You may just be shaken by a noise or anything that can happen around you. So anyway, thank you, Lucy. That's very useful to know. Yeah. Yes, Gabriel?
For me, that was a very funny experience, this exercise. And I imagined myself at the end of a performance, very intelligent, not a difficult part, but the end. And I saw myself, and I'm very happy. I was very relaxed. And that is a little miracle for me. I wrote to you that normally I'm very critical to me, and I'm encouraged. I was happy. And that's a good omen for me.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I mean, that's a very good thing to do, is to imagine yourself in a happy situation in a performance. That's something we might do. It's one of the strategies we might use. So you already done it, so great. But this, the other thing you say as well, being self-critical, that is one of the points where we can go into anxiety and stress. Yeah.
That was only an imagination.
That's fine. That's fine.
Photo for me.
If you imagine it, it's a possible future, so that's good. I'm happy with that. Good.
Thank you.
Anyone else who would like to share? I think Irene wanted. Yeah.
My connection is not very good, so I'm not sure if you can hear me okay.
We can hear you.
Yep. So yeah, I thought my anxiety was just physical, because when I came into the stage, I started shaking for no reason. And I was worried, like I couldn't really control my body. So for the last exam in June, I had to play Mozart concerto. And so I thought, I didn't want to start shaking for no reason and mess up the whole piece. So I took like a kind of pill, to lower the heartbeat, and so I could have my body in control without, involuntary shaking. But the problem was, I have like, I'm not sure if that's the right word, intrusive.
Sorry, we didn't hear the word you said. Say it again.
Basic thoughts, like thoughts that came into my mind without reason, saying, oh my God, it's thoughts, like thoughts that came to my
Yes.
mind for no reason, while I was playing. So I thought, okay, so I wasn't shaking. My body was very settled, my posture, everything, but I couldn't stop the exam. There are like 3 examiners looking at me. So I making mistakes, you do. You make mistakes. And when you think this is not gonna be okay, it happens, So I mess up a few passages because of these thoughts. Not because of my body was shaking, but because I was thinking I was going to fail. As Lucy said, I think before. So I think it's a good way. There are like techniques to control your body, but I think it's tricky to think of techniques to control your thoughts during the performance. Does it make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. Your connection was very funny, so I'm just gonna make sure that I understood what you said. You were saying that during your last exam, you were doing the motor concerto, and you took the pill so that you weren't shaking while playing, but you had intrusive thoughts. Is that what you were saying, right? Intrusive
Yes.
thoughts. Yeah. And
Yes,
that you couldn't
yes.
concentrate because you kept thinking you might fail, or what are you thinking about me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like the concentration goes somewhere else, goes to the wrong direction, and you stop thinking about the music, thinking about the piece, and you start thinking, wow, I've been watched. Or you feel on the spotlight, and it makes me feel anxious.
No. It makes a lot of sense. And in any situations like that, I think it's very normal to have thoughts like that take you out from the music, because exams are a bit surreal anyway, but to have to play for somebody who's judging you. But at the same time, you expose two things. One is the physical thing, that you might be shaky, and the other thing is all these thoughts that might just come in while you were supposed to be focusing on something else. Uh, so those are two different things, and yes, you're right. They're both quite hard to work on, and create a lot of stress, anxiety. If you haven't got any tools, definitely it can take over easily. So thank you, Irene. I understand exactly what you mean. Thank you. Hannah, is there you would like to share something about?
Yeah, I can think of two performances when I was younger that stick with me. Which one was I was sort of last or something, and I had been holding my bow, and it was just I was just sweating all over my bow, and I got up to play, and literally no sound came out. So it wasn't a great start because I'd just been holding my bow like this. And then there was another one in Preludium and Allegro. I just kept going round the same bit, that sort of cadenza bit. I just kept going round it and I couldn't get out of it. I was just round and round. And then there was just the feeling like, I don't know how it's going to go, with a performance. I don't know how it's going to go, like fingers crossed. And I got to a point where it's just really crippling, and I did have to take beta blockers. But then the problem is you can't practice under the conditions of beta blockers really, unless you're taking them all the time. So it was a feeling like, I don't know how I'm going to feel. I don't know how it's going to go. And then I just sort of got to a point where I was just fed up of it, and I thought, like, it's actually not about me. The playing, it's actually about how it's received, the audience enjoying themselves. It's actually not about me. And that helped a little bit. But also I did another course on, it was called Greet Your Gremlin. It was at the Academy. And so you actually had to draw your gremlin of what it's saying to you. There's distracting thoughts. And so that helped me a lot. And I think I'm at a place where I kind of know how a performance is going to go, and that gives a level of control, and it's just a lot more practice of under pressure. But I would say public speaking for me is, speaking in this scenario, I'm like, my heart rate is like, so I'm not totally comfortable in front of an audience. So I guess I'd like to be more so, and I'm not very stringent about breathing techniques and yoga and meditation. So if I had a few more techniques, that'd be helpful.
Thank you, Hannah. Yeah. I mean, you said lots of things, lots of good things, and lots of different situations. Interesting what you were saying about drawing the gremlin, and what saying about the that sounds like quite a fun way to deal with this, which is, I think it's also important to keep some sort of fun into this, not to take it too seriously, because otherwise it just takes, it's too much. But yes, I think any sort of performance or like you're saying, talking in front of people. I think when we don't feel in control, I think that's what it is, that we feel that, you know, something might go wrong because we can't control what's going to happen or the outcome or whatever. That just reminded me, when you were all talking, reminded me of another situation in my case, and that I won't go too much about it, but I had to play, again, it was a very friendly audience. It was a Suzuki concert in Liverpool many years ago. And I was asked to go as a guest player and to perform kind of for all the children and the parents, just to have a inspiration, I guess. And at that moment, I was doing my master's, and I was preparing for a competition, which I never did at the end, but anyway. So I had this program, and one of the pieces was Carmen Fantasy. I don't know why. I just couldn't play it. I couldn't play the whole thing properly. I could play most of it, but there were a few sections where technically it was not clean enough. It wasn't clear. It was a lot of tension going on. And on the day of the concert, I mean, first of all, it was Liverpool Cathedral, which is massive. So it was really scary. Suddenly, yeah, like, whoa, in the middle of this massive, huge place. Really big audience, obviously, as well. And, you know, everybody will be looking at you because, you know, an inspiration for all these children and parents. And I can't play the piece. So it was not a great combination. I somehow played through it and kind of saved the day with a lot of tension. I never taken any beta blockers, thankfully, but it would have been one of those moments where it would have been quite useful. I think, because everything was, you know, I couldn't really be thinking about anything else, and I was really stressed. I also said I will never play that piece again, and I have had to teach it a few times, but not play it again. So that's quite useful. Okay, so there's a few things that we can take out of all of this. I'm just gonna check that we're okay with time. Yeah, okay, we're kind of okay. This is always going to be the longest moment with us. We're all sharing our stories. I don't want you to go without at least getting some practical tools. We feel a little bit when this kind of thing happens, a bit like what Irene was saying, what all of us were saying, that the mind is playing tricks with us, and it is the subconscious mind in a way that is the one that is kind of putting all these things in front of us, you know, to prevent the performance. And the idea is a little bit that the brain, especially the limbic brain, which is the more the fight or flight mode brain, suddenly feels like there's a threat. The threat in this case is not a tiger coming to eat us, but is a performance. But the brain takes it in the same way. There is a threat, so I'm going to do something about this. You know, either I'm going to try to avoid the performance, or I am going to just, you know, find a way to go through it. But, you know, with all this thing going on, so it's not a natural. It's not a nice way to go through anything in life, but definitely not in a performance. So what we basically want to do is to find a way to reprogram that subconscious, which is very difficult because, like Irene was saying, you cannot really think about it because it keeps coming in your way. And that's why things like mindfulness, meditations, things like this can really help, because you are able to detach yourself and kind of see what's happening, like you were doing now when you were revisiting those moments. You can see them from outside and see what's happening. You can even do it at the moment when it's happening, when you have done enough practice. And that's the idea of meditation or any of these mindfulness techniques. And the other thing that the brain also doesn't like is change. So if you're trying to change anything, the brain will in some way fight it back, because change uncomfortable, is not something that you can just be happy with, or the brain can be happy with. So let's just keep things as they are. It's fine. I'm suffering, but I'd rather have suffer that I know that, trying to get better. And that's a little bit also the brain fighting back in that way. I like that idea that Hannah, what you were saying about the gremlin. The gremlin is that part of the mind that doesn't like us to change those things, because and so it will keep on giving you these thoughts. It will keep on giving you these anxieties and stress, just to keep you as you are at this moment. And if there was a traumatic experience at any point, like the ones you were saying, or any other ones, especially in childhood, it will always feel like a performance or whatever it is that you had that attached to, that's the thread. So every time it keeps coming back, it will keep on feeling like that, and it will keep on reacting the same way. So that's an idea. Now, here I am also thinking about how we can help our students, or how can we help other people and ourselves, especially those people who, like young students who haven't had those traumatic experiences yet, and how to prevent them. I think that's really important, because like we can see in this group, and if you talk to anybody, everybody has a story that has had anxiety. Yeah, no problem, Hannah. So one of the things that we can do as prevention is, I'm just going to go through the Suzuki method ideas, because some of those are amazing for prevention, and you will probably have seen in your students that they might not have had as much anxiety when they're performing. So one of the things that I definitely do with my students, and I'm sure you do as well, is to expose them in a gradual way to performances. So, for example, we're talking about group lesson, for example. So in a group lesson, they have an opportunity to play a solo in front of the group. So it's something small, or they play in front of the families, or they play in, for small audiences. And most of the time, just people that are going to be non-judgmental, and just, happy atmosphere, good environment for them to feel comfortable with performance. And if they do it constantly, that can be really useful. Now you can apply that to yourself as well. If you're feeling anxious about performing in general, then just try to find more opportunities to play, as many as possible, but not scary ones. There's something easy that you can be happy to play for. Yes, like we tell our students, play video tennis, something like this. You can find more, opportunities that you can perform in front of people, but not necessarily a big audience, just, small committee. So the more performance opportunities that we can have, or our students can have, the better. And another thing that we also do in Suzuki is that idea of ensemble playing, whether it's a group, or if it's orchestra, or later on will be chamber music, but to be able, for them to be able to perform as much as possible in different situations with different people, and so they don't feel so much like it's just spotlighting them. It also helps. It doesn't mean that they might not feel anxiety playing with a group, but there will be less opportunities to feel that you're completely responsible for what's happening. Another thing from the Suzuki ideas is the positivity into all of this. So in this case, it would be positive self-talk. So something that Gabriel was saying earlier, to be very self-critical, it's something I have seen in my students, in a few students in particular. They can be very self-critical with themselves in general, and that happens also with the performances. So we need to find ways to help them to find a more positive approach to how they're playing, and not to focus on mistakes, not to focus on things that haven't happened as good as they were expecting, but what are the positive things that you can think about this. Something I tell my students sometimes, for example, is something my own teacher said when I was at college, which is when you do a performance, if there is one thing, one special moment that people can go home with, and that's enough. It doesn't have to be the whole performance has to be perfect. If you do mistakes, it's okay, as long as you try to give something to the audience. And it's that idea I think Hannah was mentioning earlier. It's not about you, it's about the communication, is about the performance. So if we can try to talk about this with our students, that it's not about your playing. They're not, people are not here to judge you. They're here to enjoy a performance, and they're here to hear the communication between you and the audience. That can be another really good way of having that positive self-talk as well. And the last thing I was thinking as well from that prevention side is that obviously having a mentally and physically prepared for a performance. What would that mean? Mentally, meaning more than anything, what we always tell our students, not to play something that is either the latest piece or something that they're not capable of playing, but playing something that they feel comfortable with playing, something that they have played many times, especially if it's a big occasion. For example, I had a solo performance with my students last week, about a week ago, at the Royal Academy of Music, and it was great. But you could feel the tension because it's an important venue, and everybody was a bit like. So I made sure that obviously I work with them for the performance, but also make sure that they chose something they were comfortable with. So most of them have had played it before in one way or another. So it's not the first time they play something in a scary situation. So they feel, I have played it before, I can play much better. I don't know if you have felt this before, but when you have played something in concert, suddenly it's easier to play it much better later on. So I feel this is really important that we keep in mind for ourselves and for our students. And physically as well, making sure that they are prepared, or I'm talking about students, but it's the same for us. Making sure that when we perform something is something that we are technically, musically, physically able to play, so that we don't have to worry about any of that. At the end of the day, most of that stress and anxiety, it is worry. It's the worry that something might happen. So the less worries we might have, the less options we have that things might go wrong, and that triggers all this spiral. That makes sense. And we're going to talk about also how to practice. That's something we will going to talk in a minute. But I wanted to give you, as promised, something for you to take with you. So we're going to talk about breathing techniques. And also we're not going to talk about it, sorry, we're going to do it. we're going to experience some techniques that might help. And also scanning the body. Has everybody understand what body scan means? Yes? Okay. No? Okay. I'll explain it now, and then when we go through it, you might understand better. So a body scan is basically just going through the body, part by part, and just feeling that part of the body, and just with the breathing, just being aware of that. For example, start with the head, and then you feel, you try to feel your ears, internally, and then you kind of just keep going down, keep feeling different parts of the body, and as you breathe, you release any tensions that might be in that part. Now, we can talk about why that's important, but obviously it's just to release tension anyway. So if you're ready, if you're sitting comfortably, you can also do it standing up, but it's probably easier to sit down. If you can close your eyes, we're going to do a short breathing meditation scan for you. So something that you might be able to use later on a daily basis, but also in any situations. So if you're sitting on a chair, make sure that you're sitting upright and you're feeling tall, but also nice and relaxed. And I want you to start becoming aware of how the air is going through your nose, coming into your nose slowly. And then you release on your exhale. And just stay with that feeling of the breath on your nose to start with. So breathe, inhale through your nose. And you can choose to exhale through your nose or through your mouth. Now, if you're able to put your hands in the lower part of your abdomen, you can start feeling how when you breathe in, your abdomen expands. And when you breathe out, it goes down as well. And just stay with that feeling, focusing on the breath in your lower abdomen. While you do this, in the next inhalation, I would like you to start counting. And I would like you to count up to 3 to start with while you inhale. Inhale 1, inhale 2, and 3. And then when you exhale, let's do 3 as well. 1, 2, 3. And we repeat that. Inhale 1, 2, 3. And exhale 1, 2, and 3. Now we're going to increase to 4. Inhale 1, 2, 3, 4, and exhale 1, 2, 3, 4. And just keep going in your own time. Now, as you continue to breathe calmly like now, I would like you to start focusing at the top of your head. I would like you to imagine you've got like an egg shape full of healing oil. And as you breathe, that oil starts to calm down at the back of your head and the side of your head. And also the front, slowly coming down, very slowly. And that healing ointment or oil, it releases any tension you might have as it passes through. And slowly keeps on going down to your neck, through your cheeks, through your face, releasing any tension you might have. And it keeps on going down, side of your neck and the back. Keeps on pouring down to your chest, shoulders, back of the shoulders. As you breathe out, any tension that touches that ointment just disappears. And it keeps going down your back. Slowly, vertebra by vertebra. Down to your ribs, front and back, and also the sides. And at the same time, from your shoulders, it keeps on pouring down through your upper arms, to your elbows and forearms, to your wrists and fingers and palms of the hands. And it goes into your belly, your abdomen, your lower back, and you feel the warm ointment that keeps going down to your hips, releasing any tension you might have in your hips. Down to your thighs, the back of the thighs, your tailbone, through your legs to your knees, and from your knees down to your calves, the front of your legs, all the way to your heels and your ankles, going all the way to your toes. And as you keep breathing, you keep feeling more and more of that oil or ointment that keeps going down from your head, slowly traveling down through your body, all the way to your toes. And before we finish this meditation, I want you to go back to your breath, feeling it in your lower abdomen, expanding, contracting, and noticing whether there has been any change in your breathing, whether there is less tension. Whether you can feel any tension anywhere else in your body. And if there is, just bring some of that ointment to release it. And just to breathe. So and in your own time, when you're ready, I welcome you to open your eyes again and to slowly come back. Okay, so that was one of the techniques that can be quite useful in general. Obviously, you're not able to do all of this in a performance, but this can be useful in two different ways. This can be something you can use as a daily meditation at home. It's many times breathing, just focusing on the breathing, or just doing a simple scan like we did today, can be one of the best ways to just anchor yourself to your body and to feel much more in your body and not so much up here. Before I say anything else, anybody would like to share how you're feeling after this, or if you feel any difference from before? I mean, it's not like you were stressed before, I hope, but if you feel any calmer or any, I don't want to say anything for you, but is there anything you would like to share? Please feel free.
Yes, I noticed that my jaw was very tense and my hands were very tense, and now they're not. So
Good. Very good.
feeling much better.
Good. Excellent. Yes, Gabriel?
More calm, and I slept for a minute. Sorry.
That's
That-
fine. Sometimes that happens, and that's probably what we need, so that's okay.
That's a good sign for me.
Good, good. Very relaxed. Lucy, anything you'd like to say, or yeah?
No, it's just a really good reminder of the kind of sequence of breathing and relaxation. Yeah, and the feeling their hands on the abdomen, and yeah, I love the oil idea. I've not come across that. That's nice.
Yeah, this is. I think the word is soft ointment meditation, and it's a Zen meditation that is quite useful for just scanning through instead of imagining, focusing on something. It's like something is going through your body,
and it makes it a bit more tangible
Yeah.
to think of something like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that.
Irene, wanted to say something?
Yeah, I feel like my breathing is a bit slower but deeper.
Yes, good. That's a good sign.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So the idea is that if you're able to do, imagine how you feel now after just doing it once. Imagine how you would feel if you did it on a daily basis. You know, in the same way that we practice our instruments, or we tell our students to practice on a daily basis. If we did something like this on a daily basis, you wouldn't need to spend so much time to get to the state that you are feeling now. And this is what, I mean, now I have done a lot more meditation on a more daily basis for the last 2 years since the pandemic, or 3 years now, since the pandemic started. But what I was explaining earlier as well, sometimes when you have done a lot of this kind of work, and also any other kind of yoga or Tai Chi or anything that requires using the body in a mindful way, it kind of anchors you in a way that then you just need like 2 or 3 breaths, and you're suddenly feeling very much what you're feeling right now, because your body remembers, because your brain knows the way that it feels. Suddenly it just goes directly to that place. If we're thinking from a point of view of neural learning, or whatever you want to call it, from the brain point of view, the more you practice something, the stronger that connection is. So the more we practice something like this, also means that we can take ourselves to this state of mind, this state of, being in the body much quicker. So that means, obviously, if you're going to take something with you and you really want to change it, I would recommend you more than anything to have some sort of daily practice of, it doesn't have to be anything big or anything difficult. Just sit down, close your eyes, and just be aware of your breathing in your abdomen, and just feel any tension you might have. When you start doing this, it's going to be really interesting, because now you are following my voice and you are focused on my voice, so it's really easy. Once you start doing it by yourselves, you're going to start seeing all these thoughts that are coming in front of you, and they keep coming and they keep coming, and you start to lose your focus on what you're doing, and you start following those ones. Now that's exactly what happens also in a performance, right? We're suddenly there, we are about to play, and all these things come in front of us. So that's the other great reason to have a meditation mindfulness practice, because we are practicing in a way not getting attached to those things that come in front of us. Because the thoughts, what these mindfulness practices are showing is that the thoughts are always there. They're always there around us. It's like, bugs or flies, they keep coming through, and there's nothing you can do about it. They're always going to be there. What meditation provides you is that space where you can just detach from them and just kind of see that they're happening without getting involved. They're always going to be there. If it's something important, you can deal with it later. But at this moment, you're just there and you're just breathing, you're just in your body. And if the more you do this, the stronger, it's a bit like a muscle, the stronger your mind is going to be to detach itself from all these things that are coming through. So I definitely recommend that you do some of this on a daily basis. And if you need any help, I'm happy to give you some ideas on how to, just the same way that we do it with our students, make sure that it's a routine. So it's always at the same time of the day, as much as possible. You attach it to something else that you might be doing. For example, for me, I wake up in the morning, and after the shower, I do a meditation. So it's just always going to be there before anything else happens, and takes me away from this moment. And it's a precious moment. If I don't do it, it feels a bit like not having a shower. It feels like something is not happened. It's a bit like, it is a bit like a shower for our minds. We just need, the minds to just go through and just go through all these things. Okay, fine. We just stay in there. And I promise you, when for some reason, I cannot do it for 2 or 3 days, my mood is not the same. I'm not as calm. I'm not as nice as I'm normally are. So I think it's really important that we have some sort of practice in that way. It can also be, like I was saying, mindful movement. If you like to do yoga or Tai Chi, that can also take you to that place, because you're being mindful of your body, you're connecting with your body, and at the same time, you can also be aware of any thought or anything else that might be happening, but you're still like, okay, great, it's happening, but I am here and I'm doing this. So that can also be very useful. Other people might find even walking mindfully might be really interesting. You're just walking and you're just there, feeling the steps, feeling your body going through, or even running. Some people like to run for that reason, just to, so they don't have to be constantly with all those thoughts in your heads. I was saying about anchoring, this idea of coming out of your heads and being in your bodies, bring us to the present moment. I can't remember exactly how it went, but there was something like, to be present, you have to be in your body, because the past and the future only exist in the mind. So if you're present in the moment, all those past experiences that you might have had of anxiety in a performance, or future things that you might be thinking, oh, I will mess up now in a performance, that's going to thin out a lot, because you're going to be much more in touch with the present, with your body, and with what you're doing. It doesn't mean that we cannot use the mind, but we have a different perspective. We have a perspective from being, in touch with our body, with the earth, and with our instruments, and not so much up here with everything that is going on. And also, this idea of anchors can be really, really interesting. That's from the mindfulness point of view. Sometimes another technique that we can have is, for example, we're talking about performance today. So just before a performance, as a little bit what Lucy was saying, you open in the case and you get your instrument ready. That could be an anchor for you that, okay, when I'm doing this, I need to remember to breathe. I need to remember to be in touch with myself and not to worry about anything else. I'm just here, and I just have a moment for myself to just breathe and to be just in here at this moment with myself. That will make a big difference on how you go on stage. Instead of being aware, I'm just going to take your words, Lucy, being aware of the silence in the room, or what Irene was saying, what they might be thinking, or what it might happen if I fail. Instead of being focused on all of those things, you're focused on being there with your breathing, with your instrument. And that can be just one of your anchors that, before you start, you're there, you feel your instrument, I have my instrument here, for example. So it's just, it could just be that, touching the instrument, you actually, that could also be another anchor, just the tactile part of this, again, it brings us back to the present and to the body, because we're actually feeling the instrument, and we're feeling how it is. And just before we start playing, we just have that moment to just be with ourselves, and to be real, and to be here, and not to be thinking about other things. Let me just, sorry, I forgot what I was going to say. Actually, I was going to ask you, does any of this make any sense? Is there anything of this that you might be willing to try, or or am I just saying things that are completely out of?
No,
Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying it all makes really good sense. I think, and kind of setting up sort of procedures sounds like the wrong word, but having like a routine,
Yes,
it makes a lot of sense, I think.
yes.
Yeah.
I think it really helps. I mean, in the same way that you have daily practice for your instrument, you have something that, it's also, this is for yourself, more than anything else. We might need another hour to talk about how we do that with our students. But the breathing part, for example, is something you can also work with them. I have worked with my students with the breathing, just with the breathing, nothing else. Because the breathing can be really powerful for the simple reason that breathing is both conscious and unconscious. It can be something that we don't take care of, like it's just happening to us in a way, or it's something that we can control because we can actually be conscious of our breath. That's why the breath in most traditions is the bridge between the mind and the body. So being aware of the breath could just be the one thing you need. It could be that it's not enough, but it's definitely a good starting point for most of us, and also for students, you don't need to go into great depths about it. Just, do a few breaths before you start. Yes, Lillian, you were saying, sorry.
I was going to say much the same thing, really. Yeah.
Okay, good. Anyone else wants to say anything? Or that's okay? All good? Yes, Irene?
Do you follow the same? Do you follow the same routine, or you change the exercises every day or every week?
Right, very good question. If I were you, I would stick to one routine. Try something that works for you. You can also follow a guided meditation like we did now. Like somebody talking and you just following it. That's probably the easiest way to start. If I were you, I would recommend, if you've never done anything like this, to either do counting the breaths, like we did at the beginning, just counting the breaths, or the scanning of the body. If you can find anything that is anything like this, and you do it for a few months, that's probably going to be enough. Well, let's say a few weeks. If you do it every day, if you do it for a few weeks, you can then move on to other things. But that will really anchor you and get you into something that is familiar.
Yeah.
And remember what we tell our students, you need to repeat something this many times, but you need to make sure that it's always exactly the same. Otherwise, it doesn't work. For our brains, the brains don't understand that you're working on the same thing. So if you're going to be doing something on a daily basis, don't keep changing, because then it won't have the same power on you. It won't be as powerful when you need it later. Because it won't feel as familiar, it won't be a connection that you have. So yeah, keep it simple.
Thanks.
There's a few other things that I think, like I was saying, there's too many things for 90 minutes, but I think probably have to have another session. If you're happy to have another session, we can talk about it later. But another thing that is very important to be aware of is the things that we can control and the things that we cannot control. So in a performance or in an exam, or that's for us, for our students, right? In any of those situations, there will be things that you can control, that are in your control, and the things that are not in your control. For example, you're in control of your own body, what you're doing. You're in control of how you play, in this case. You're in control of how you're feeling and how you respond to things. Those are the kind of things you're in control of. What you're not in control of is thoughts that might happen to you. You're not in control of what the audience might be feeling or thinking. In fact, it doesn't really matter. That's their business, not yours. And also, you're not in control of things that might just happen out of the blue. Whether it's somebody you're playing with does a mistake and the whole thing kind of tumbles around, or there's a noise, like I was saying earlier, and distracts you, or there's so many things that are definitely not in control. And the problem is that we keep worrying about those things that are not in our control, and we try to control them, and that's what makes us more anxious. But really, if you just focus on the things that you're in control of, and that's one of the reasons we do our breathing and our scanning. We're in control of our breathing, we're in control of our playing, and that's it. We're just in control of playing as beautiful as we can. That's all we can do. And if there's distractions or things that happen, what we can do is, how do we respond to those things? And we can work on that response. But definitely know we cannot control the things that have happened to us or that have happened in that moment. That makes sense. Exactly. Lucy happened now. the door just opened. Thank you. You know, things happen anytime, and we might get distracted. It's just our ability to come back and focus on what we can do. Another reason to do a mindfulness meditation on a daily basis, because things will keep happening, things will keep coming to us, whether it's internally with thoughts or externally, and is our ability to focus back on our breath, to focus back on whatever we are scanning, whatever it is. That focus back is the most important tool. That's the tool that the muscle that we are building, that focusing back to what we're doing, focusing back to what we are able to do. That is one of the main reasons to do these mindfulness exercises. Because if you have, if your muscle of focusing back to the important things, let's say, it's well developed, when you're in a performance and things happen, like we said, anything that can happen, we might get distracted, but we're able to come back and focus very quickly back to what we're doing. We're not like out of the equation again. So that's one of the really good reasons, again, to keep on doing these mindfulness exercises. Unfortunately, we only have 5 minutes. I obviously had a few more things to say. I want to kind of wrap up a little bit what we had today, and then if we want to have another session, we can just decide when we can do it. So as a conclusion, and this is both, again, for yourselves, for your students, and for anybody who might be in a performance situation that you might be able to help, there's a few things that we can do. The first thing, like we started the workshop today, is to listen more. That's one of my new favorite quotes of Suzuki. You know, if somebody doesn't know a piece, just listen more. If something is obscure, listen more. Listening more is always a really good example. Now, in this case, what do I mean by listen more is you listen to, if it's another person, you're listening to the other person, you're listening to what anxieties they might be going through, and just by the act of listening, you are allowing that person to start healing. You're allowing that person to start moving from that situation because they are expressing it and they are being heard. So listening, what was that phrase again? Listening is one of the loudest forms of kindness, because you're just giving all your attention to the other person who is able to just say everything. Now, let me just reverse this by saying listening more also to yourselves. So listen more to your body sensations, listen more to whatever's happening, and just be aware of all those things, all your feelings, all your emotions, all your tensions. Listen to your body when you're playing. Next time you do a performance, listen to yourself, what is happening, and because then you will be able to work with it a lot more than just being completely unaware of what's happening. So listening more, I think, is the first thing, definitely the first thing. And then to prevent what might happen, like we were saying earlier, anything that can happen, having those daily commitments, that consistency, that's the third thing. But that consistency that we have with our practice, or the students might have with their practice, the same consistency should be with some sort of mindfulness breathing exercises. And that prevention as well comes from the point of view of having a more open mindset to the situation, and having that idea that you cannot control anything that can happen, but you're in control of yourselves, or what you can do when you feel and how you're playing and how beautiful you're playing. And finally, just to accept what's happening, because many times, I think in English you also say butterflies in your stomach, right? I think it's the same in many languages. Those butterflies that you might have in your stomach, those are not necessarily a bad thing. It's a different story if you're freezing up. If you're freezing up, we definitely have to kind of find a way to release the tension. But if it's something like butterflies, if it's something that, that tension that you might have in a performance, there is a different energy in a performance always. So you can use it to your advantage. You can use some of those, that electricity that you might be feeling. You can take it to your advantage and then just really perform and be happy and be thriving in the situation instead of feeling like, oh, I don't like this feeling. I don't know what it is, but I don't like it. Just trying to be accepting of whatever you're feeling at that moment without judging it. I think, especially for those who've done the course with me, you will know, or you might have been to other sessions of this, which is whatever mindfulness is, just being aware of what's happening without any judgment. So that is something that we definitely can use in this situation. Whatever is happening in a performance, let's say, whatever's going on, whatever you're feeling, that's okay. Just accept it. That's what you're feeling. Don't try to fight it, because the more you fight it, the more you'll create more tension and more problems. Just try to accept what you're feeling. You're feeling tension. You're feeling okay. I just stay with it. Can I release anything? Can I just? What do I feel? Can I just continue performing without having to paralyze because I'm feeling all these things? Just can I just stay with the flow? Okay, so acceptance, that's what I was trying to say. So listening, preventing with an open mindset, the consistency of the practice, in this case, well, any practice, and then acceptance of things that might be happening, whether it's in ourselves or outside of ourselves. Are we happy with this? 4 things? Yes.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Good, good. And there was a couple more things that I wanted to talk about. One of them was using more visualizations like we did at the beginning, but a little bit like Gabrielle was saying, having a more positive visualization of something like a performance. So that's something, if you're interested to know more, I wouldn't mind doing another session, and also to see how you're getting on with your practices, because it's really easy to say, oh yes, from tomorrow I'm going to be, every day I'm going to be doing this mindfulness breathing and all these things, and you might be doing it for 2 or 3 days, and then it's like, well, actually today I can't do it. Before you know it, you've forgotten completely about it. So I think if we had another session, it might be quite useful to see how you're feeling about this. How is it going? Whether you have, it's okay if you don't do it every day, but obviously if you do it every day, you will feel a lot more different. So let's try to find another date, and we're not going to say dates now, but let's try to find another time that we can all do it, maybe even if it's at the end of the summer or something like this, so that you can have time to digest all of this, to try things out, and we can try to put a few more things on top of it. And also I know there's a few people who will be watching this because they couldn't make it at this time. So I think it will be quite useful as well for them to know that there might be another session we can recap some of these things, and then we can use a few more things after that. Okay, so let's leave it here for today. That's okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. I hope you have some food for thought and some ideas. If there's any questions, you can always email me. You can always ask me, like, oh, can you help me finding a way to meditate or whatever it is. Just let me know, and And if you have any performances, use them as, let's see how I can use any of these techniques or not, or just being aware of it, just being aware of the moment and seeing what is it that you're feeling at that particular performance.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Really helpful. Yeah,
Nice to meet you.
really good.
You're welcome.
Thank-
Okay, thank
Thanks,
you.
Kim. Bye.
You're welcome.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.